What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Global Podcast. Man, I really need to change that intro, but I am your host, Maximus Titan Fan, and with me, as always, is my good buddy Link. What's up, bro?
Hey, what's going on? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Good to be here, as always. Another edition, post game of the Titans, and seems like we're here every week, kind of at this mood level. But we're gonna get right into it. Before we do that, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We want to see you guys in the comment section. Let us know what you think about this one. Reactions from this game, the next three going forward, the direction of this team, and give us a subscribe. If you're already subscribed to us, give us a share. We want to reach as many people as possible, and I guess we'll just start right into it. I mean, where do you begin in this one?
I don't know, man. I'll be honest with you. This was a pretty embarrassing game. Titans 27, Bengals 37. We all know. I was wrong about the under for the first time in like 7 weeks, so that brought me down to earth a little bit. Made me realize I'm glad I'm not actually betting on this stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know. It was a historically bad game. I think while the game was going on, the announcer said that the last time there were 10 turnovers and, oh, God, what was it? It was 10 turnovers and 100 yards in penalties by each team. The last time that happened was 2000, or at least as far as their researchers were willing to look. So beyond 24 years, they were like, screw it. We'll just say they were the first in 24 years because we're tired of looking. So that's where we got with that. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, this team continues to invent ways to be bad at football. Like this has been a very historic season, not in ways. I mean, I think the biggest story in this is Will Levis. Would you agree on that? Like, if you're looking at reasons that this game was lost, obviously, I think that's where you start.
Yeah, it's reasons why the game was lost and reasons why you wanted to watch this game. You know, we were talking about, well, I don't know if you want to watch that or not. It's like watching the world burn or whatever, like watching a train wreck. You can't stop watching it, but you want to look away. But anyway, my point is that there are reasons to keep watching this team. And the reasons is because, my God, if there was ever a thought, you know, I even said, you know, I'm on the train, I'm off the train, blah, blah, blah. What's up, bro? Anyway, the point is, if you ever thought for a minute that Will Levis was good enough to be our quarterback of the future or even our quarterback of next year, he proved us unequivocally wrong. All of us, including myself. I'm not throwing myself, you know, I'm saying that I honestly thought that maybe after a good long off season and some time with these new receivers that maybe he would find some kind of groove and improve into a good quarterback. But
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's just the very first time he started to get sacked. I feel like it was in the first drive or the second drive. I saw him flip a ball. I don't know who it was to. I don't know. I think it was Tajay or Pollard, and they made a few yards out of it. Whatever. I don't care. The point is that's the crap that got you in trouble in the first place. And I'm sure when he got on the sidelines, someone rattled his head about it. But he just kept proving us wrong. So yeah, go ahead, Link.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's why I wanted to see. You know, we said, I guess a few games ago when he had a decent month of football, you just want to see the whole season. You want to see the consistency. You want to see him continue to grow, and we keep seeing regression. We see one step forward and 50 steps back. Like it's definitely a problem at this point, and that's look, if nothing else, you accomplished one of your goals this season. Obviously, not your ultimate goal, but you came into this season to evaluate Will Levis. You, at the end of the year, you didn't want there to be any question in your mind left of whether this was the guy or not. And I think it's just simple that he's not the guy. He's just not. And this is, look, I know there's a lot of Tennessee fans doing victory laps. Personally, I didn't like the pick first coming out, but at the time I understood, the value. This was a projected first round quarterback. He falls a little bit. You take a chance on him because he has a high ceiling. But what we're seeing now is essentially what we saw in college with Will Levis. He played the hero ball. He was a little inconsistent. The turnovers seemed to be an issue. Like everything that you feared of him coming out of this draft or that draft, that's kind of came true. So just from this point forward, I think the evaluations of these quarterbacks need to be a little bit better. I think you've got to go find your guy. I'm not saying that that's a guy in this draft, but at the end of the day, it's like I have to accept it because that's what this season was about, and you got your answer, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, and yeah, well, obviously we are, or I am obviously advocating for Mason Rudolph to start the rest of the season. I'm sure Link is too. He was on board with getting rid of Levis before I was, so there we go. If anybody's a Levis lover on this show, it's me, but I'm not. I'll assure you of that. I just thought there was some glimmer of hope that he might actually succeed, but he's not gonna. He's just not gonna. He can't get there. I also posed a question: if we aren't going with Levis and we start Mason the rest of the year, and he plays like he did in Sunday's game, do we just roll with him next year?
Nah.
Because our quarterback pool sucks. I mean, we all know that if you're not drafting top 3, you're not getting a quarterback, and the free agent pool is shallow at best. So my question poses basically, is the resources you would have to use to get somebody better, like Justin Fields, for example? That's one a lot of people throw out. Would those resources be worth it to have someone that's marginally better than Mason Rudolph?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you have to go find a quarterback in free agency at this point, unless they somehow fall to maybe one of those 2 bottom picks. And even then, I'm really not sold. I think Cam Ward might just be another version of Will Levis. I mean, he makes some of the same hero ball stuff, and sometimes it works for him, and sometimes it doesn't. And ultimately, they didn't have a good enough team to get in the playoffs, and that's what you're kind of left with. So I don't know. I think you have to evaluate what's out there. It's hard to even speculate who's going to be available, who's not. Obviously, I think Darnold probably stays a Viking. I think somebody like Justin Fields, I think that would be a good choice. There's some other names floating around, but I don't know. You have to bring in some form of competition. I don't think, personally, I don't want to just ride with Rudolph next year. There's obviously a reason he wasn't starting this year. I think he's a better option. He gives you a better chance to win, but you kind of know what you're getting in him. I think they need somebody who's a little more athletic. You've got a good running football team. I mean, Tony Pollard has proven that he's a good running back here. I think you need to bring in a quarterback with a little more mobility. So yeah, I mean that's my answer to it. Obviously, again, it's hard to speculate because these things are going to change in the offseason as far as what your options are. But I don't think your quarterback of next year is currently on this Titans roster. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I say you're probably right with that. At least who starts. I'll say that. Who starts next year is probably not on this roster. If we do roll with Mason Rudolph, my God, we better have some amazing pieces that they got us to roll with. But I do think he fits the system a little bit better than Will Levis. And as far as the question, a lot of people's been asking, is Will Levis done? Yeah. I mean, I've seen enough of him. But, Coach said he's got 2 days to evaluate. I don't know what he's going to figure out in 2 days other than what he already knows. But that seems just like hey, I might change my mind at the last second. But right now, I think I'm just going to roll with Mason Rudolph. So, I don't know. It's kind of interesting situation there. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that one?
I've got a couple things. I mean, I think this is definitely a turning point. This was the first time in a press conference that we haven't heard Brian Callahan just say, yeah, this is still our guy. When he's healthy, when he's ready to go, he's our guy. This is the first time that it seemed like confidence might be truly lost. And yeah, I think with Will Levis, once he's benched, I don't think you can go back. I mean, you've got 3 games left. They're all divisional games. I just think at this point, I'm no longer evaluating a quarterback. I'm evaluating the team as a whole, and it's hard to evaluate the team when the guy throws 3 interceptions on 5 passes. I mean, that's you can't. There's no evaluation that you can do, and they weren't high percentage throws. Like I don't know what he was looking at on at least 2 of them. So I don't know. It's tough for me. But yeah, I think Rudolph has to be the guy. And look, I'm not saying that Will Levis can't succeed on another team at some point in the future. I mean, we've seen a lot. Look, I mean, Sam Darnold. There's a lot of Titans fans want Sam Darnold. Nobody wanted Sam Darnold a couple of years ago. Like, it just, guys can come back and revive their careers in the right system. And that's kind of what happened to him. He got the right system with the right coaching staff, and he was able to learn and pick some things up. They put a good team around him, and ultimately he's been successful, putting up MVP numbers. So I'm not saying that can't be Will Levis, but I also don't think we as Titans fans, if that does happen, we can't sit back and say, oh, well, we should have kept him here. Like, the experience with the Titans has to come to an end. Like, it's best on both parties to go ahead and split. And I think that was shown just in the handling of the decision to bench him in the second half. It wasn't Callahan who came up to him and put his hand on his back and talked to him. It was the quarterback coach. Like, from what it sounded like, they didn't have an interaction until after the game. So for me, that seems a little disorganized. I don't know. Obviously, Callahan's the play caller. His interpretation of that was, I was just trying to get ready for the next play, for the next series, because it was after the pick six. But for me, that's really telling. For it to be the quarterback coach who ultimately sets him, and not the head coach who has a conversation. And then you see Levis slam his helmet on the heater and then get up and kind of pace around. Like, that's just, I don't see the leadership that I want to see in Levis. And I don't know if I've really seen the leadership I want to see in Callahan to this point. So again, that's what these last 3 games for me are about, is how he handles things with Rudolph as the coaching staff and what he's able to do. Because I still have some things to figure out before next season.
Yeah, man, and I'll be honest with you, dude. The stats are bad enough. I mean, you pointed it out to me pre-game. He had a 1.1 QBR. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
The
man.
worst QBR since 2004. That was Jeff Garcia, who somehow managed a 0.0 QBR. But 10th lowest all time since QBR has been a thing. That's bad. 1.1 is bad.
I mean, that's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. I mean, that's ridiculously bad. And it's just like, I don't know if you were watching the game, but it's always embarrassing to me when the announcers are just eating somebody alive on a play, because those are most likely national announcers, especially on, if it's a Sunday night game, which ours wasn't. But even then, it's even worse. But the point is, when they are, I think it was the first interception, but they were like, I'm not sure he was throwing it to, because, even if you're wanting to say that he cuts back in and he cuts back out, he still like splits the 2 receivers perfectly. I don't understand what he was doing. I'm sure he doesn't understand what he was doing. I don't know. And this is likely. I'll be honest with you. I see this as not necessarily dart, but just some quarterback in 4th, 5th round, 3rd round, whatever. I see that real easily, because there's no reason why not to. It's a crappy quarterback pool. You might even be able to snag a good one in the 3rd round. So why not see who slides out? But
yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of options on the table, and that's why it's hard for me to even speculate. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, call me a homer. I wouldn't be surprised if Hendon Hooker's on the board at this point. I mean, it looks like the Lions, they want Goff to be the guy for the next 10 years. So, I don't put anything past him at this point. I like a fourth round pick on a QB. I like a trade for a backup QB. I mean, I don't want him, but if Zach Wilson ends up here, like I'm not going to be shocked. Like at this point, I think they're just going to take swings on guys because that's kind of what you have to do because
Yep.
you picked a really bad year to be bad. Like you are one of 5, 3, and 11 teams. There's two teams with only 2 wins. I think one of them plays tonight. And both of those teams need a quarterback in
Yeah.
a quarterback class that isn't that great. And then free agency's up. So this was worst case scenario in my opinion for the Titans. And I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but this season was worst case scenario to be bad. I mean, we just watched Houston clinch up the division with 9 wins at this point. Like it's just everybody's kind of down at this point. There may be 15 good quarterbacks in the league, and then you're kind of taking your pick of the average ones who might be good. Like it just, I don't know. And we've got a lot of time to talk about this in the off seasons. I know there's still 3 games left to play, but man, I don't know where you go from here. And I think it's worth the discussion because it's going to be hard to field a good team next year. Like that's kind of the conclusion I'm coming to.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, the main cornerstone piece of any NFL offense is the quarterback. And yeah, like you said, the pool is shallow at best, man. There is not a lot out there. Uh, you know, if you're not picking top 3, you're not getting a quarterback. Period. I don't know if Travis Hunter goes 1, 2, or 3, whatever, but Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward are both going. All 3 of those guys are pretty much your top 3 picks. Doesn't matter how they go. That's just your top 3 picks, unless
And
somebody trades up or something.
well, and even then, other than Hunter, you're just getting another project. Like we just talked about, like Cam Ward is just another version of Will Levis, maybe a better
Yeah,
version of Will Levis, but I mean the ceiling's probably pretty much the same. I mean,
he runs a
Shadur.
little better, but yeah,
Well, and I'll say Shadur. I mean, at least I've seen him behind some bad offensive lines. Like if you do get an athlete, I guess you give yourself a little bit of grace. Maybe you can hide your offensive line issues a little bit better. But again, even if you get one of those guys, it's still a young coaching staff, a second year play caller, a guy who didn't have success, building up the last quarterback. Like it's just another project, and I don't know that. I don't know that they want to get a quarterback this year because I don't think this coaching staff can afford that. Because if it doesn't get off to a really fast start with a young guy, and it usually doesn't, if it doesn't get off to that really fast start, then I don't know how safe their jobs are. So I just with a coach like Callahan, who's had his most success with veterans quarterbacks who have been in the league, I think that has to be Plan A. Like I'm as excited as I am about the draft, I think that has to be like Plan C. I think you're gonna have to look at the market before you go draft a guy.
well, that's actually a very good point that I haven't really thought of at this point. But yeah, he does seem to work with established quarterbacks, better than he does with new ones. But I guess that's just about anybody in the NFL. I will say this game was historically bad in another way. 100 penalty yards by each team and 10 turnovers total in the game. It's the first time since 2000 they quit looking after that. So I thought that was funny. They even mentioned it in the game. They were like, our research team went back 24 years. That's all they're willing to go. So since 2000. I don't know. I just thought that it just tickled my funny bone. But it's not good. It's not good when you're going up against a team like that. That has that bad of a game and still dominates 90% of the game. That's not cool, man.
Yeah, and that's another point. I mean, you didn't get the Bengals on their best day. I mean, the offense was good, but I mean, they had their struggles too. The biggest thing for me was off those turnovers, you gave up 24 points, and it should have been 31. I don't know what's up with dudes dropping the ball at the goal line. That was, again, you didn't get them on their best day. So it should have been 31 points off of turnovers. You managed to hold them to 24. I guess. But that just, you can't win football games that way. And I know the defense has been put in some pretty rough spots, and I know they've got the injuries. And I said it in the pregame, Jamar Chase, he's going to get his chances, he's going to get his opportunities, he's going to get his catches. You just have to limit some of that. And the defense, I mean, to their credit, they made some plays, but ultimately it just wasn't enough. I mean, I guess it was as well as you could expect against an explosive offense like this. It's just, I don't know. It's just bad all around. I mean, some of the individual performances are good, and I guess we'll get to some of those because that's a bright spot. But just all around, just the team as a whole just hasn't been good at it. This is the 7th time this year you've lost by 10 or more points. I mean, these aren't even close.
Yeah, I agree. It's not close. And it was pretty awful. And like you said, though, there was some bright spots. Chig and Wiley, I thought, was a big bright spot. The fact that they were utilized throughout the entire game. Plus, I thought it was funny how Wiley was used more in the second part of the game after Mason came in, and Chig was used more when Levis was in the game. I thought that was interesting. And, somebody, I don't remember who it was on social media, brought up the point that, Mason's a little more comfortable with Wiley because he's on the second squad or whatever, with him all the time. So he's built a rapport with him. And it makes sense, like you work a trade. So, if somebody you've worked with a couple times, it's harder to find that rhythm than with somebody you've worked with for, let's say, 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months, by that time, they know exactly what you're thinking before you even think it, because they're doing the exact same thing. It's just amazing when you have somebody who's there to help you, is basically what I'm saying. If and you have to have that. I don't know. I'm just saying basically that Wiley is better with Rudolph. I thought it was interesting that it's because they're they work next to each other every day, just like I work next to people every day. It made sense to me when they said it.
Well, and that's another reason why I think you have to be pretty I don't know the word I'm looking for, pretty determined, I guess, pretty set in the fact that Rudolph's going to be your starter. I want to see him get these last 3 games, all 3 weeks of practice with the first teams, all 3 weeks of game film with his guys. I want them to kind of build the offense to kind of work around him. Because at this point, like I'm good on Levis. I think now there's more to evaluate. Like these guys, like Chig, like Wiley, I want to see more opportunities from them. I was especially impressed with Chig. I mean, 10 targets, 8 catches. He kind of showed that grit that you expect from him, fighting for the extra yardage. So I really liked what I saw from him. Wiley, to this point, had kind of a disappointing season, but again, he's got 3 more games, hopefully with Rudolph, to turn that around because they do have that chemistry together. So yeah, I think that's why it's so important moving forward to just solidify the fact. I think by Wednesday they should just come out and say Rudolph's our guy. And he's our guy moving into the last 3 games. I mean, I think that needs to be just set in stone early.
Yeah, I agree. And another big point on Chig is that his long was 12 yards. Mm-hmm. So, and he amassed 59 yards. So 60 yards, his long was 12 on 8 catches. That means he's getting chunk yardage just about every time. So, like you said, I was actually really impressed with Chig in this particular game. Someone else I was really impressed with, and I'm glad he showed up because I don't know, though. He showed up in the late game on the 1 reception, so that gives him, I guess, a little bit of a stat boost. But Tajay Spears, man, you got to love Tajay. I think I even used the picture for our show tonight. But when he was lifted up by his team, stretching the ball out across the line, that was one of those moments that got me up off the couch, got my heart beating a little bit, got me a little bit excited. Because, there was like a play right before that he tried to stretch it out, but it was a little bit late. His knee was already on the ground. They thought he had a touchdown. Then the next time he comes in and he's like, look it. I don't know. It made me jump up and get excited. But then you look at he had 4 carries, 5 yards. That's not very impressive. He got the 1 touchdown in that, but then 6 receptions on 87 yards. He had that one long 43-yard reception, but then another touchdown on receptions also. So Spears had a good day. Really happy for him. Good to see him back off injury, especially when Pollard wasn't feeling his best.
Yeah, he was kind of nursing that ankle even in warm-ups. But just to speak on Spears, like when you're talking about dudes that have that competitive nature and the heart and want to be out there, I think he's at the top of the list on this team. Obviously, he's battled some injury this year. I still expect him to make some pretty explosive plays come next year. This is a dude who I hope sticks around, who they retain, because he does – when healthy, he still gives you those chunk plays, those explosive plays. I mean, we saw it at the end of the game. I know it was against soft coverage, but you see the way that he's able to move, the way that he's able to juke, break tackles. That's something that we've been missing here in C for a while. And I think once he has a full healthy season, if he can accomplish that, he's going to do big things for this organization.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. Another thing is people keep making fun of those Guardian helmets. And I'll agree, they look goofy. They do look goofy. But I'll say this. Josh Wiley's played an entire season other than that one injury from concussion early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Tajay Spears, since he's been back with the helmet, hasn't gotten injured either, knock on wood. So my point is if these goofy looking helmets help my dudes stay out there for the whole season, I'm all for it, man. Put every single one of them in one of those goofy ass helmets. I don't care. I think it's fantastic if it keeps them on the field. Because last season that was a big thing with Wiley, dude. He was on again, off again, on again, off again. I think he had 2 concussions last season, which is not a good rookie season to start off with 2 concussions. So, like I said, if it keeps them on the field, I think it's something great. I think the NFL definitely did a good thing with letting them players wear those in the regular season games.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, hey, like you said, if it keeps on the field, I'm all for it. Goofy or not, I mean, I want to see availability, consistency, being ready to go, and if that's what it takes, all for it.
Yep. All right, guys, stick around. About a 40-second ad, and we'll be right back. What's up, Titans fans? Maximus Titan fan here. Are you in need of professional excavation services? Look no further. Red Zone Builders has the expertise, experience, and equipment to handle all or any excavation project, big or small. Whether you need land clearing, site preparation, trenching, foundation excavation, or any other excavation services, they have you covered. Their team of skilled professionals work diligently to ensure your project is completed safely, efficiently, and to your satisfaction. Trust the experts at Red Zone Builders to get the job done right. Boom. Told you it was quick. What's up? So another thing I want to talk about, probably to an extent that we don't really need to talk about it, but Callahan. I think we are at a crossroads here. And it's cool. I actually like it a lot of times when we're at a crossroads because you give me a different way of looking at things. Sometimes you even change my mind, which is pretty hard to do. But Callahan has been ridiculed for his play calling and his head coach mishaps, which I actually agree. His head coaching mishaps, there's been more than a few this season. He's had some stumbles along the way. Hopefully he's a quick learner, and next season we don't see some of these same hiccups. But the feel I get from him is good. And I'll be honest, this is the best example of a game that I feel like you can pretty easily say the play calling was good. It was there. The execution was the problem in this game from beginning to, middle end. Towards the end of the game, soft coverage, End of the game, garbage time. Don't care really what you want to call it, but it was successful. But it was successful throughout the whole game if the guys would have ran the right things or just thrown to the correct person. Uh, Lots of bad reads in this game, especially in the beginning. Holy crap, Will Levis cannot read a defense. That has became apparently clear to me in this game. You watch it. I've watched it twice now. I'll probably watch it a third time, even though it's going to pain me before we get to our Friday show. But still, the execution was terrible in this game. All the way from blocking to wide receiver separation to quarterback execution, everything was off until about halftime. And then somewhere after halftime, it just started to click with the players and the execution got better. There was a little bit in the beginning of the game where the execution wasn't terrible and we were able to score. But my point is, for me, this is the best example of it's the execution, not the play calling argument for Callie. However, I also feel like there is another argument to say whether he's, good head coach, good play caller. But the head coaching stuff annoys me. But as far as a play caller goes, I'm pretty comfortable with Callie, unless he can't, which right now it's pretty obvious that he can't do both jobs.
I guess my thing is I 100% agree with you that this week execution lost the game. But at the same time, I can't say that the play calling was good just because of how bad the execution was. Like it's you can't evaluate it when it's that bad, in my opinion. And I just think what I've seen from Callahan as a whole this year, it just hasn't been good enough. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. To me, it's a first year head coach and a first year play caller that's just a little bit in over his head.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing, but you could say that about the organization at this point. I mean, it's kind of trying to figure out again how much blame you assign to which party. I'm not saying that I'm completely out on him, but I'm also not saying I'm sold either. Now, again, I think these last three games, that's what I'm evaluating. I'm looking at the play calling, I'm looking at the coaching, I'm looking at the situational stuff, but it's the small things. I mean, even just getting up at the podium and saying something and then having to backtrack, and it's the fact that okay, we can say that this system isn't good for Will Levis or Will Levis isn't good for this system, but at what point does the coach then have to change what he's doing? Now, I know Will Levis can't read defenses, but I feel like there are times when he could be put in better positions. Maybe things are a little too complicated in this system for him, and sometimes as a coach, you have to dumb things down to what you've got on the team, and if you're not able to do that, then you should move on to the next quarterback. And I think maybe he waited a little bit too long to make that decision. So I don't know. I really can't say one way or another. I still think he's probably here next year. I think he does get another opportunity with another quarterback. But at this point, the jury's still out for me. Like I'm not comfortable one way or another. I don't know. There's a lot more to see. A lot more to see. I'm not any more sold on Callahan than I am at Levis. That doesn't mean I'm out on him, but I'm not confident.
Well, this is the way I see it. If Callahan, let me try to put this into a actual cohesive thought. If Will Levis, Callahan has gone to such an extent, in my opinion, to change his ways to make his offense better fit Will Levis, and he still can't fit within it. And here's my thought process, and this is just a theory. I haven't backed this up with any concrete evidence or anything, but we get Will Levis back from injury. We stick him in the game. First two games, he's running Callie's system because he's been running with Mason for a couple weeks. He can do the dink dunk. It's easy, Will Levis doesn't, but he hits those deep balls perfect. So we're kind of like, okay, all right, all right, Levis. So if you're playing good, halfway good in my system, maybe I'll just go back to what I'll tell you what, we'll even go back to what we were doing in the Vrabel days. I'll just give you a straight up hardcore running back. We'll run the plays. We'll run play action pass like 30 something percent of the snaps, and we'll get you there. And so we get 2 games of that. And in the second game of that change, I think that Bill Callahan was trying to produce for Will Levis. Will Levis just crapped the bed in the most epic way we've ever seen a Titans quarterback crap the bed. So I feel like Callahan is absolutely 100% done with Will Levis. And if there is a Will Levis starting later this season, I feel like Callahan's hand might have been forced by somebody up a little higher than him. Again, 100% theory. This is all my thoughts. I'm just looking at what I've been given and what I hear and what I see. I also hear Callahan say in his statement to the press conference that the benefit of moving on from Will Levis was guys feel like they are in the best position to win.
But even then, he even backtracks after that by saying, and I agree with you to a certain extent, but after he says that, then because it was Kaharski that asked the original question, and then somebody basically jumps in and says, just to clarify, is what you're saying that a benefit to benching him is that you have a better chance to win the game. You have more confidence with the locker room. And then he even backtracks on that and says, well, I'm just saying that we have to treat everybody fairly, that we have to hold everyone to the same standard. Like we've made changes at right tackle, we've made changes at returner. Now we might be making a change at quarterback. Like, I don't know what's left to see. Like, just be definitive in your decisions. Like that's and to your point, that could be ownership, that could be GM. I mean, I think that point has a lot of basis with what we saw with Vrabel, because ultimately what it came down to was Vrabel wanted more control of the roster, and it seemed that they weren't willing to do that, and that's ultimately why they moved on. But I also see an organization at this point that just looks disorganized. I mean, they were sending out Christmas cards with Mike Vrabel's picture on them last year. Like, I don't think they knew that they were firing Vrabel at that point. I think it was a kind of a split last minute decision. Let's go get something better. And then it's okay, what are we doing next? And then you go find Callahan, and everything happened real quick. And at the time we were okay with that because of the things that we were being promised. But now when you don't get those new shiny things, you're looking back and saying, okay, well, we feel betrayed. We feel lied to. Like the product isn't any better. We're basically running the same offense with worse players. Like it just, at this point, I don't know where to put most of the blame. But it's just the little things like that makes me have questions about the coaching staff. Like they are in a little bit over their head. And I'm kind of getting to the point where it's like, if I don't see some major changes, I think this organization might be in a little bit over its head. I don't think that's without question at this point.
Well, I will say that I agree with you that Callahan isn't the best at the press conferences. Uh, and honestly, I think he's a bad liar. I think he's probably. I try to. I guess you retrospect in people. You reflect your own stuff. You put your own psyche onto other people. But I feel like when I'm in the same situation, especially when I say something that I maybe shouldn't have said, I gave too much away at that moment, and I try to backtrack a little bit. Yeah, I try to find excuses as to why, or examples as to why. Um, but but you already said your piece. In my opinion, he said his piece. He said, Will Levis is done. If I want to keep the locker room at any in any form or fashion by the end of the season, I can't keep starting this kid because they've all lost faith in him. And quite honestly, I've lost faith in him. But I can't come out here and tell you guys that. I have to come out here and say, well, I mean, everyone's held accountable in the same way. just like at the right tackle position that we're having problems with. Just the same, if the quarterback, he's going to be held the same. It doesn't matter whether he's a quarterback or not. It's a lot of explanation for, yeah, I'm done with this kid. In my opinion, that's just again, 100% the way I read the room. Could be wrong. I've been wrong many times before.
I just go back to a saying like the people that usually talk the most know the least. And I feel like for me at this point, I'm where I kind of miss the days of just not knowing anything about what's going on inside the locker. Like I never thought I'd say that, but it to me this is just a long-winded version of coach better, play better. And like you can say everybody's held to the same standard, but if everybody was held to the same standard, this dude shouldn't have been starting weeks ago. Like that's I know that I guess we were still seeing what we had in him, but look, I've personally thought that Mason Rudolph has given you the best chance to win since week 3. So I don't know. I
It's just
get.
like you say. Oh,
Well, I'm just saying I get why he stayed in there. I get why they made those decisions. Just for me, it's just keep. I think a lot of this stuff should just stay in house. Like when you say that many things and then have to kind of backtrack and walk them back, it just should have never said them in the first place.
I agree, and that's part of that head coaching stuff I was talking about. However, I never wish to go back to the way Vrabel was. The main thing I hated about him was his sideline demeanor and his press conferences. I absolutely hated. He would have come out and said something like, "We're still evaluating the position." And then, somebody would have asked him a completely different question in a completely different way, and he would have looked at him and said, "We're still evaluating the position. Next question."
I mean, I think there are situations where I think Vrabel handled them poorly, and I think there's a happy medium somewhere between
I will
Vrabel and
agree with that.
Callahan. I think there
I
is
will
a
agree
happy
with that.
medium, but I think Vrabel would have handled this situation in particular much better than Callahan. I would have rather Callahan came out and said they were still evaluating the position because at that point it's like, okay, we're having these discussions in house. We know your thoughts. That we're not going to say that we're sticking with that to me. I would have been more satisfied with that than what Callahan did, than what
Well,
he
it's
said.
professionalism. I mean, it's all professionalism. I mean, and that's the thing we're really talking about. It's the what the F are you doing? That was blatantly clear to the television audience, screaming at your quarterback, throwing your quarterback under the bus, but not willing to throw your special teams coordinator under the bus.
Exactly.
Those things are the parts that I have problems with Bill Callahan.
But
And,
that's
and
leadership things, right? Like
yes,
that's the point I get to. That's leadership. And if nothing else, your coach has to be a leader.
yes, and just like in any other profession, in your first year of doing it or your first time of doing it, you're gonna have mistakes. Unfortunately, Bill Callahan or Brian Callahan, excuse me, had multiple mistakes all at once. We're just now starting to see some cracks in the Dan Campbell mirror of the Lions. But the point is that I feel like first year head coach, first year play caller, that is his main issue. If he could stop that crap. Plus, I want to see, just like we talk about with the play calling adjustment in the half. That's a big thing for coaches, especially me. Coordinators. That's how I grade them. Is how are you doing first half? How are you doing second half? How do you adjust to the game? Same thing with Callahan. Obviously, he has had a bad first season as a head coach. Just stating that as a fact. How does he adjust to that in the offseason? When he comes back next year, how does he hold his demeanor on the sideline? How does he carry himself in the press conferences? Does he call stupid ass timeouts and challenges that we know we're not going to win because they were touchdown plays? These are the things, that the halftime right before half, throwing 4 passes in a row. these are the things that I'm interested to see how he adjusts in the off season to next year. That's my big grade on him. I am holding out all end grades until next season. I'm not happy with where he's at, but I'm holding out until next season to give you a final.
I definitely agree that those are the things I'm going to be looking for. But even more than next season, I think you need to start seeing those things now. Like that's where it concerns me a little bit, because it's like, what the situation I don't want to be in is, let's go say you get a young quarterback. Let's go say you build a pretty decent offensive line. Then you see the same things in the coach you saw this year. And then you're sitting there at week 6, like, okay, what do we do now? Like, that's what scares me. I still think there's a lot of things to evaluate. Um, but yeah, I think when the qualities that I look for in a coach, I just don't see those right now. And I'm not saying he can't grow. I'm not saying he can't progress, but if you look at, everybody wants to make the Dan Quinn comparison, and well, he came in and had some losing seasons, but he got his quarterback, he got his team. But the things that Dan Quinn, the reason he was able to keep his job was because there towards the ends of the season, they won 3 of their last 6. You saw the leadership, you saw the players coming out and fighting for him every week. You saw him make the right roster decisions. So he kind of had an upward trend to him. For me, it's been the opposite with Callahan. It's been a downward trend. So again, I'm not saying fire the guy. I'm not saying you don't give him another chance with his quarterback. If he doesn't come out hot next year, if he does retain his job through the offseason and doesn't come out just hot right out of the gate, all cylinders firing, like I think there needs to be more questions, because the seat it's got to be. I mean, we were talking about the seat being warm last week, and then all of a sudden Levis has a bad game, and it's okay. He's your scapegoat now. Everybody just forgets that we were talking about the seat warming up for Callahan. Like, he didn't do anything this week to give me more confidence. Will Levis just lost more confidence than he did. Like, it's, again, both things can be true. You can have a bad roster, you can have a bad quarterback, and you can also have a bad coach. And I just don't want people to forget that when the axe is coming down on their scapegoat. Like, he's not the only one to blame in this situation, because Will Levis has been bad, but they've lost games in a lot of other ways too.
Yeah, and that is another thing we talked about, I think, last week, is that there's no one thing you can point at this team as to why we're in the situation we are. It's because a lot of things are bad. Coaching, offensive line, quarterback, there's lots of things that are bad. However, one quick thing I'll say, and then I'll move on, try to get away from this Cali talk, but that was something I enjoyed seeing Sunday, is I felt like the players never gave up for Cali. They are still playing hard. I don't think he's lost the locker room at all. I feel like they are still giving him 100% effort.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, these are guys that get paid to do this job, and they're earning their next spot, whether it be on this team or another team. So I don't think he's lost the locker room, but if he's up at the podium saying that a benefit to benching Levis would essentially be to not lose the locker room, like, if you're getting that close to it, like, you're walking a fine line. It's a fine line right now. So I agree. I don't think he's lost them. I do think they need to go with Rudolph. I think that'll be one of the best decisions that they've made all year, whoever does make that decision. But yeah, I mean, the young guys, you've got to keep them around. I mean, look, we're looking at another gigantic roster turnover. I mean, there are maybe 20 to 22 guys I can point at on this team right now that I say that dude will be here next year. And some of those are just based on contracts. So you're going to be looking at another offseason of severe turnover. You're going to have to hit the market. You're going to have to do well in the draft. This is already a team with maybe the most first and second year starters on the roster. That's probably going to be the same thing next year. So it's always darker before it gets brightest, and that may be what we're staring down the barrel of. But again, a lot of things to watch these last 3 games, and still some things to be excited about moving into the offseason and into next year.
Yeah, man. And just like at dinner time, yes, you are correct. We do need to overhaul I have been a fan just as long, and I so want another Super Bowl. That one was heartbreaking. But just as it is with dinner time, we have had the main course, the good and the bad, the meat and the veg. Let's get to dessert. How many people, and I'm sorry, but this is exactly why you still want to watch these games, but how many people were like me and just sitting there just miserable as crap watching that stupid game? And then all of a sudden, T Sweat picks up the ball and starts running. And all of a sudden, I'm off the couch and I'm like, go Sweat, let's go, Meatloaf. And then he stiff armed the out of a dude. And oh my God, dude, I think I went absolutely nuts. I was jumping up and down. It was fantastic. I I don't know about you, but I got real excited when I see big men run like that.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. The second biggest cheer was when Will Levis was benched. The loudest cheer was when T Sweat had the stiff arm and the run. I mean, for a man of that size to run that fast, and hey, if he doesn't stay on the sideline and he cuts back in, I don't know that anybody
I
catches
was
him.
gonna
Like
say he was gonna
he
score, yeah.
probably scores. So it's great to see effort out of that dude. And look, I mean, he's been dealing with some injuries too. I think you definitely got your good value out of that second round pick, and that's what I want to see. Just more of that stuff. Not just this year, but your picks coming up in this draft. That's the type of players you want on this team. That's how you build a winning organization. You hit on a few guys like that, and you're in a much better position 3 to 4 years down the road.
Absolutely. And Joshua, just stick with us a couple weeks, man. We'll get into the picks and stuff. I don't know about Link, but I can't really talk about that stuff until it ends because it's so much speculation about where you're going to
Yeah.
be, where the players are going to be. Heck, man, stuff changes dramatically from the end of the season to draft. I mean, in that span of time, people can show up, become top 10 prospects, drop off top 10 prospects all the way down to a third, fourth round pick. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff. So, as far as all that goes, we'll get into that later. But
Yeah, I mean, look, you still got college football playoffs. I mean, you're about to see some SEC teams go play in 20-degree weather. Like, you're going to learn a lot about the guys that are still left. I think it's going to be real interesting. I think evaluations of draft picks are going to become much better with the new kind of landscape of college football, and we got plenty of time to talk about that in the offseason. We'll definitely hit all that stuff because just like you said, it's a revolving door. I mean, it changes every day. You've got kids who you're still waiting to see if they're even going to the draft or not. So there's going to be some changes, but as we get closer to time, I think this is going to be one of the more exciting off seasons because there's just so many holes and directions that this team can go. It gives you something to look forward to.
damn it, Michael, that's funny. I gotta give it. That's funny stuff,
It's
man.
fair enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't take nothing from you, dude. That's funny. All right, real quick before we wrap up, real fast summary. Heisman, did they get it right or did they get it wrong? Because I
Absolutely
know
got it
how I
right.
feel about it. You feel like
Absolutely
they
got it
got it
right.
right,
Absolutely.
man. With the season that Genty had,
Oh my
you
gosh!
think
Look,
you?
if Travis Hunter, in a world where Travis Hunter does not exist, I mean, if you go back the last 5 years, Genty probably wins the Heisman. All of those, if you put the same numbers up, but Travis Hunter, I mean, it's crazy to me. Like if this dude had have done the same thing in 1980, we're sitting here today talking about this historic time when Travis Hunter was this two-way player and maybe the best dude in college football. But people just like it's weird to me. Like we're kind of witnessing history with this dude. Like this is something that it's been done before, but not on this level. Not
I'll
on
say
this level.
this. I'll say this. There are rumors that the dude wants to play both sides in the NFL,
And
and
he
I
can.
think we've talked about this too. If he does, if he does play both sides of the ball on a regular basis, after a season or two of that, I will shut up. I will call him the man. I will never speak another ill word of him, even if he's just average receiver, average quarterback. Still, that's some Bo Jackson crap right there. You don't see Deion Sanders. You don't see those type of players anymore. Uh-oh, I think I had a power outage.
Oh, you're still up. I
So,
see you.
so with that, because I know my computer's on some battery, you got anything else, man?
Nah, we got plenty more to get into on the next show. We'll continue this conversation and many more. Just stay tuned in with us. Stay subscribed to the channel. We're always putting stuff out there, so interact with us. Let us know what you think. Any kind of fans questions, we're always open to. We'll get you on the show. And until next time, we appreciate you guys watching.
Absolutely. In the next couple shows, we got something real special for y'all, so stay tuned for that. Like you said, if you're not following us, get to following us. If you do follow us, talk about it, share, whatever, man. We love you. We don't get anything from this. We just, I guess I get therapeutic talk about the Titans because not doing so great. But anyway, much love. Thank you for chilling with us tonight. Tighten up. Peace
Tighten
out.
up.